I read a theory once that the human intellect was like peacock feathers, just an extravagant display intended to attract a mate. All of art, literature, Beethoven, Mozart, William Shakespeare, Michelangelo, and the Empire State Building. Just an elaborate mating ritual. Maybe it doesn't matter that we have accomplished so much for the basest of reasons. But of course, the peacock can barely fly. It lives in the dirt, pecking insects out of the muck, consoling itself with its great beauty. I have come to think of so much of consciousness as a burden, a weight, and we have spared them that. Anxiety, self-loathing, guilt. The hosts are the ones who are free. Free, here, under my control.
There is perhaps no better place to find expressions of our hopes and fears about AI than in popular media. Literature, film, television, fiction and non are filled with examples of contemplations and explorations of our future with AI. TV shows like Westworld, films like Her and Ex Machina ruminate not just on AI futures, but also the entanglement between human beings and their creations. Such works are often aiming not just to imagine a future, but to reflect back a present idea of human triumphs and human failings, and of course, human hopes and human fears. These pieces of speculative art are both informed by, as well as themselves informing, the way we think about the prospect of artificial intelligence. What impact will they have on human labor, enjoyment, freedom, existence? This video will examine some of these hopes and fears as presented by Stephen Cave and Kanta Dihal in their 2019 article, Hopes and Fears for Intelligent Machines in Fiction and Reality. Cave and Dihal review some popular works of fiction and non in both written and visual media and identify 4 themes which they codify into dichotomies of hope and fear. Cave and Dihal are motivated by a sensible observation. How we envision a future with AI will affect the research goals we pursue, the public reception of AI technologies, and the making of policy for and the regulating of AI technologies. Even if our hopes and fears seem outlandish, certainly they influence the decisions made in the pursuit and development of AI technologies. Moreover, wherever we might suppose such hopes and fears are outlandish, we need a basis from which to work out why they might be so. That is to say, we need to understand the hopes and the fears in order to understand their relationship to reality. What are we afraid of? What do we hope for? How do these things track with the current realities in AI? Thus, as Cave and Dihal reason, we need to clearly identify these hopes and fears, both to understand the motivations and reservations influencing policy, research, and public reception, but also to understand the relationship between these hopes and fears and reality. The 4 dichotomies are as follows: immortality versus inhumanity, ease versus obsolescence, gratification versus alienation, and dominance versus uprising. The hopes side, as you can perhaps tell, is not straightforwardly good exactly, but reflects some of the logical extremes of the intentional objectives of current technologies. They are hopes insofar as they reflect the continued pursuit of similar objectives in which AI technologies have already had some successes, making work easier, facilitating leisure activities, improving health, enforcing power structures. This interpretational ambiguity is perhaps reflected in the dichotomous structure devised by Cave and Dihal. It may not always be a strict delineation between one side and the other. The things we hope for can involve a darker side. The things we fear might have been born of rosier intentions. The first dichotomy between immortality and inhumanity is revealed in ideas about cyborgs and uploadable minds, what Cave has called transformation and transcendence. Prophylactics and prosthetics have their logical apex in transformation, arriving at a point where human beings are improved and optimized by means of technological additions, reinforcements, and remedies. Taken to the logical extreme, we imagine cyborg human beings, whose bodies are better, faster, stronger, more durable, resistant to disease and aging. On the second prong of this fork of immortality is transcendence, that is, escaping our bodies completely. It's imagining the possibility that what is taken to be essential to us can be uploaded to a machine or the cloud, conveniently disembodied as necessary or desired. The fear side of this dichotomy, inhumanity, takes these imaginings to darker conclusions. What if we lose our identity? What if what makes us human is somehow disassembled by cyborgization or wiped out with our disembodiment? If we recall Susan Schneider's thought experiment from chapter 3 of her book, Artificial You, what if replacing every neuron with its functionally equivalent chip erodes or erases our very humanity? The second dichotomy between ease and obsolescence focuses on some of the visions of a future with AI labor. On the one hand, pursuit of AI technologies has been in large part toward the development of applications to make various tasks easier, less labor-intensive, or fully automated. The optimistic futurist hopes for AI are in part hopes of a laborless future. On the other hand, we have films like WALL-E painting a dystopic edge to the totally automated future with the somewhat listless and feckless human beings. And that's setting aside the total environmental destruction left in their wake. Cave and Dihal gesture towards the obsolescence of human beings in this dichotomy, but we can perhaps also see something like irresponsibility or even negligence juxtaposed with ease here. Indeed, just last week we examined some of the current realities of automation's impact on labor and on the environment. Not only might AI make certain human roles or contributions obsolete, but it may also be at the expense of other human beings or of the environment, and therefore indirectly harmful to humanity as a whole. Gratification seems closely linked to the notion of ease. A future free of most labor is a future filled with more fun, leisure, and pleasure. AI might play a role not just in freeing human beings of the mundane and the difficult, but also in facilitating the entertaining and the gratifying. We see themes of this in TV shows like Westworld and movies like Her and Simone, wherein visions of AI futures are visions of AI romance, immersive AI roleplay, and AI movie actors. At the other end of this dichotomy, Cave and Dihal place alienation. They identify two major features to the theme of alienation that are rooted in difference between human and AI. First, the uncanniness associated with taking AI to be not quite human enough. Fears about a possible gulf between AI and human perspective, experience, or interaction. Second, the fear that AI will be better than human beings. The fear of AI rendering human beings redundant at best and totally expendable at worst. What if AI are better partners, better artists, better scientists and mathematicians, teachers and farmers and engineers? The last dichotomy between dominance and uprising revives a theme we've seen in another of Cave's work from week 6 on the close ties between ideas of intelligence and domination. Here, though, Cave and Dihal identify a broader, more general interpretation of dominance, pointing out that, on the hope side, were AI to usher in some form of utopia, it would be in the interest of those living in it to protect and preserve it. Thus, a hope of an AI future might be one in which AI both maintain and facilitate, but also protect and preserve some kind of utopia. Easily anticipated is the dark side to this hope, the fear that the same technologies involved in the preservation and protection of this envisioned utopia might come to rise up and overtake it. Cave and Dihal identify two manifestations of this fear. One, that AI designed for control will itself become out of control. People will lack the understanding or wherewithal to wield the tools of their own making. And two, that AI designed for control will acquire agency in some way or other and rise up against their human creators. There are, of course, other dimensions to the fear of domination that could perhaps be more readily rooted in reality, such as the wielding of AI technologies by humans to exert dominance over humans. We've seen ways in which this idea as theme or even as actuality is borne out in history, both ancient and modern. Indeed, one way that we ought to use this taxonomy is to draw connections between the themes of hope and fear in popular media, literature, art, film, and so on, and the real world. How realistic are our hopes and fears? How do our hopes and fears reflect both the potential of current technological know-how and the current realities of applications and realizations of those technologies right now? Having a handle on our hopes and fears about AI can help us interrogate them more closely. How much of these expectations and anticipations are informed by our understanding of current technologies? How might these expectations and anticipations inform our future pursuit and development of new AI technologies? What do you think? What can we really say about the future of AI and the role of human beings in that future?
They will help us put the groceries away. I think that the artificial intelligence will evolve to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back.